Hello guys and welcome back to the F1 Tube YouTube channel. Now after the silly season driver market took another twist this week, Nico Hulkenberg is looking at the prospect of being kicked out of F1 by virtue for 2020. With limited seats available for the German to, let's say, secure a drive in Formula 1 going forwards. Today I will be talking about Nico Hulkenberg, his chances of driving in F1 next season, and does he deserve to be on the F1 grid still? But before I get into all of that, I just want to say, guys, sorry I haven't been uploading for the last 10 days or so, or in fact nearly 2 weeks. Basically adapting to school life in, let's say, a certain GCSE year group isn't the easiest, and I've had to balance out my time. So YouTube isn't the priority over certain other stuff, but I will still be pumping out content for you guys to tune into. But now that's out of the way, let's get into the nitty-gritty of this video. Like I said earlier, Nico Hulkenberg is looking at the prospect of not securing a drive in Formula 1 for 2020. After Esteban Ocon will be replacing him for next season, and Romain Grosjean has secured a drive at Haas for 2020, an option that Hulkenberg, through media outlets, looked set for. But it seems to be the case that Hulkenberg is going to be that driver that is neglected from Formula 1's future and Formula 1's grid for the following season. And trust me, this is not the first time it's happened in the sports history. Use a recent example, Esteban Ocon, for this season. And it seems that the Hulk's Formula 1 dream and vision is becoming very minimal. I mean, you can see his body language and his facial expression in the F1 media. He is committed to F1. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Yes, he's won Le Mans, but he continuously talks about wanting to stay in F1, and he's not necessarily interested about racing in other series. But like I just said, he just seems to be that driver going into 2020 that will be isolated and neglected from F1's driver market. Ever since Nico Hulkenberg joined Renault, I really feel he's established himself as a top midfield driver. No, he does not scream world champion quality to me ever since he's joined F1. I know his junior career was very promising, but he's never replicated that success in F1. But the fact that he gets overlooked by certain teams really, for me, is irritating, because at the end of the day, Nico Hulkenberg is more than good enough to drive in F1. Like I said, ever since he's joined Renault, he's been a very solid midfield driver. In 2017, he absolutely annihilated Jolyon Palmer. Yes, I know it's Jolyon Palmer, and let's be honest, he was absolutely diabolical. But even in 2018, if you look at a video I did on my top 5 drivers of 2018, Nico Hulkenberg ranked very highly in my list, and he deserved it. His 2018, he goes up against Carlos Sainz, a very highly rated driver. I still think underrated, but very highly rated. And the Hulk beat him fair and square. What else can you say? Yes, I know Carlos was adapting to his first season at Renault, but he still did perform relatively well, and Hulkenberg faced a massive challenge, and he rose to it. But I think it's fair to say that 2019 has been a different kettle of fish to 2018 for Nico Hulkenberg. Obviously, he had a new teammate in Daniel Ricciardo, and I posted a video before the season saying that this was Hulkenberg's last chance to impress, not in F1, but to prove himself to the top teams. And I think 2019 is justified that he doesn't scream world champion quality, as he is at times agonisingly inconsistent and makes crucial mistakes. Use his home race in Germany as an example. He would have finished on the podium had he not crashed out. But one thing I definitely disagree with is people remarking that Hulkenberg has been absolutely annihilated by Daniel Ricciardo in 2019. That has not been the case, full stop. Yes, I know this is Danny Rick's first season at Renault, but at the end of the day, Hulkenberg has given him a good run for his money. Look at races such as Australia, where Hulkenberg was just quicker and better than Ricciardo that entire weekend. Same as Hungary, and I know Renault didn't score points, but Hulkenberg was quicker than Ricciardo that weekend. Germany, up until well, in qualifying, Hulkenberg was quicker than Ricciardo. In the race, like I said, Hulkenberg was on for a podium. Hulkenberg has had speed against Ricciardo this season. Yes, Danny Ric has been better, but anyone that's saying Ricciardo has whitewashed the German, I think that's false. The thing that has hurt Hulkenberg in 2019 has been his qualifying speed. At times he has been vulnerable in qualifying 1, looking at the prospect of being knocked out in a session that you wouldn't expect him to. And you have Ricciardo delivering some stunning qualifying performances. Use Canada as an example. But in the Grand Prix, I genuinely think, and this might be a bit controversial, Hulkenberg has been on a par with Ricciardo, if not better. And I know the championship standings don't represent that, but Hulkenberg has had to claw back some more track position than Ricciardo, and that is why Ricciardo is on top, because of his qualifying performances. If you look at the races, yes, I know Italy, Ricciardo was better than Hulkenberg, but you use races such as Bahrain and Canada where Hulkenberg was quicker than Ricciardo, because in Bahrain Hulkenberg qualified P16, probably could have ended up finishing P6, and in Canada Renault had to enforce team orders to keep Hulkenberg behind Ricciardo. Now, I'm not saying just because of the race performances Hulkenberg's been better than Ricciardo, but if you look at the grand scheme of things, I think Hulkenberg does deserve more credit for what he's been given in 2019. Now, you can see why Hulkenberg is leaving Renault. At the end of the day, the two parties just don't seem to be in great harmony, and ever since Danny Ric joined Renault, Hulkenberg lost that, not treatment, but that belief that he was the lead driver in that team, and he has had to settle for a position that he really wanted to avoid, and I think that's why he went to Renault in the first place. And I think Hulkenberg's career is the best case of ifs and buts. What if he drove for Ferrari in 2014? His height resulted in him having to stay in the midfield, not moving to a top team. Now, I know Ferrari were dire in 2014, but it's Ferrari. And then you have the Ricciardo-Renault situation that I have alluded to. But what are Hulk's F1 options for 2020? First off, Alfa Romeo. Now, if you gave me Giovinazzi and Hulkenberg, I would take Hulkenberg every day of the week. But Giovinazzi is younger and maybe has more room to improve for the future. But in a Karun Chandhok interview at Monza with Gio's dad did say that Gio was glued on for another year at Alfa Romeo, and he probably wasn't meant to say that, but even in a world where gossip is probably a load of BS at the moment, I am going to believe him. But I still wouldn't totally rule out this move. At the end of the day, Alfa Romeo are the old Sauber team, and Hulkenberg did actually drive for the Sauber team in 2013, so he would know the team well. But to be honest, Antonio is a Ferrari Academy driver, so that does really say a lot. Red Bull. Now, I can't see Red Bull going for Hulkenberg. He's not a Red Bull driver in any essence. Plus, I think Alex Albon will be nailed on for that seat next season. I think he will do enough to drive for the Red Bull senior team in 2020. And I don't think Toro Rosso or Red Bull will drop Kvyat or Gasly from that team. At the end of the day, they're getting the points for the constructor. Plus, if or when Max Verstappen leaves Red Bull, they will want a Red Bull Academy driver filling in that second seat. So I think it would make sense for Toro Rosso to maintain that driver lineup for next season, consisting of Kvyat and Gasly. But Ferrari, now, this does sound odd, but I do believe it has its pros and cons. Well, more cons, but I do believe there is some logic to it. I am not convinced of Seb's future in F1. Don't get me wrong, I'm still pondering over whether he'll stay or go in terms of his F1 future, but he just doesn't seem in a happy place, especially across the span of this season. And with Charles Leclerc's success recently, especially winning the Italian Grand Prix, that was a massive moment in Ferrari's future. If you are winning Ferrari's first home race in 9 years at that magnitude, that pretty much nails on the fact that Leclerc is Ferrari's stallion right now. And I love the phrase Vettel went to Ferrari to be a Schumacher, but he may turn out to be a Barrichello, and Vettel just does not want that. And I don't know whether Vettel wants a legacy to be this or that, but at the end of the day, he is not in love with F1 as he may have been in 2015, 2016, 2017 or even last year. So why not bring in Hulkenberg? I know he's not a top driver, but at the end of the day, he probably will keep things harmonious within the team. He'll accept that number 2 role, and he is consistent. Well, when he wants to be at least. But you think again, and it's just not going to happen, is it? So, to conclude, firstly, Nico Hulkenberg is good enough to drive an F1. I mean, for goodness sake, he's better than the likes of Stroll, Grosjean, etc. He's a very good midfield driver. But I genuinely don't believe he'll be on the grid next year. He'll be the 2019 going into 2020 version of Esteban Ocon. Irritatingly overlooked and probably casting the end of what could have been a very promising F1 career. And with Nico being one of my favourite drivers on the F1 grid, I am absolutely gutted. But guys, that is it for today's video. Please like this video, comment down below what you thought of this video, where do you think Hulkenberg will end up for next season, and please subscribe to the F1 Tube YouTube channel for more content like this. But until next time guys, see you later.